For example, did you create a character named Uncle Phil and then go to get Mel Brooks, or does Mel Brooks or Carl Reiner or Sid Caesar or any of these extraordinary people call you and say, I watched this show, I love this show, and then you create a character for that person?
I think it was a little bit of both. Often we would get an idea and think, boy, that would really be great if we could get so-and-so, and then we'd go see if we can get them, and then if it works, it was great. First time we introduced Carol and Carol, they were going to go cross-country trip in a little RV, and we had the whole joke was we went for dinner in this very, very tiny cramped thing, and there was this moment that we've had the joy of having a lot of times on our show where we would look at each other and go, we're sitting with Carol Burnett and Carol O'Connor. Gee, this is, you know, this epicenter of television. We're pretty blessed. And that show, Carol's whole joke in that show was that the cramped quarters, and she had to reach for something and everything was uncomfortable. And we watched her genius. Everything was underlined for maximum comedic effect. She had the wardrobe department make sure that the sweater was an inch shorter so that when she reaches up there was this much skin showing, that the props were placed, that everything had the exact reason. I thought, she doesn't have to work this hard, but she is.
Teresa, darling, sit down and enjoy your meal.
Mom, sit down.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes, here we go.
The carrots. Oh. Mom, I don't think there's going to be room.
Now, that's what you think. Now, watch this. Show them, Teresa.
Oh, Paul, you take the butter and the sour cream and you put it up there on the shelf above your head. Darling, you take the wine bottle and squeeze it down there by the fire extinguisher. All right, now everybody put their coleslaw bowls in their laps. And if anybody wants the salt and pepper, they're in the sink.
You did one episode that maybe resonated for me because I'm a film professor, and this was called Citizen Buchman. And this was an exact and precise parallel to Orson Welles' masterpiece. We can now call it a masterpiece, but with a little twist, a little kind of a Buchman twist on it. And this is about the death. Paul is making this documentary, and Uncle Morty dies.
And it was also wild that we had these great, kept getting these guest stars, and suddenly, you know, we had Sid Caesar, who...
Florence Stanley.
And Florence
so
Stanley.
Funny. And the actors who played your cousin and his boyfriend, I just watched it recently, and I was like, they are funny.
And Freddie DeCordova, who played one of the boss of, I think, my mother's boss, and it was, yeah, it was a great, and David Steinberg, we actually got to have him doing that was a great, the ending time with you correcting him, just where he just, doing the eulogy and could not get anybody's name right.
Let me introduce them.
Oh, my God.
His nephew Bill.
Bert.
His nephew Eamon. Arnold. And their wives, Celia
Sylvia.
and Rose.
Blossom.
And Sylvia.
And again, with Sid Caesar, who played such a key role in that. Was the role written and then you approached Sid Caesar, or had he said to you, I watched this show, I would be available
I think...
It's not be the I don't think he called us.
I know, he's not calling people. We had a pretty good streak of getting people that we wanted, and as I said, sometimes it's as simple as stepping up and asking. Yeah, and they go, gee, never thought you'd ask.
Uncle Harold says he has no nephew, Paul.
Uncle Harold, you know, if you just let me explain, what happened was
Would you tell this person who's trying to talk to me that if I did have a nephew, Paul, he would have called me and told me about the death of a dear one, instead of leaving me like a dog to read it in the newspaper.
Uncle Harold says if he did have a nephew, Paul...
I heard the whole thing.
So we had actually a meeting with Sid Caesar, and Mel Brooks was the next week. And I remember sitting there, we were working with Sid Caesar. He was trying to get his big speech and playing with it. And I remember sitting there with Victor Levin, and we're working with Sid Caesar, and we're kind of looking at each other going, we're in the room with Sid Caesar tweaking comedy bits. This is, my God, this is, you know, our forefathers. This is 40, 50 years ago, television. And then we got a call that we had to run over to Mel Brooks to talk about next week's script. So we finished with Sid, ran over, and we said, not since 1954 has somebody left Sid's office to run to Mel's office. And I said, we're in some sort of terrific place. That the people who you remember and who emerge are there because of a reason.
Come closer. Come closer. I have to tell you something very important. A little closer, closer. Go on, come on, come on. Oh, just too close. Okay. Now, what I want you boys to do is to do for me a big favor.
You name it.
I want you to
Yeah.
move the couch. Yes.
Move the couch?
Move the couch from here to here.
With Mel Brooks, we had something that I think we had the fact that I had to find an old relative, and Mel Brooks happened to be on the lot, and Helen and I went over and basically groveled, and we bowed it. And he's a big fan of groveling, by the way.
He likes that.
Likes to be groveled. And he let us kiss his ring, and he said, all right. And
in that first meeting?
I think he said, I'll get back to you.
Oh, Paulie and Ira. Now, give each other a firm embrace. Each other. Family, firm embrace.
Firm embrace.
Now, simultaneously, Uncle Phil, a firm embrace. Come on. Too much, too much. Easy.
In that episode, what actually killed me was the pause he would take before saying the next ad lib, because you could just smell the smoke of his brain. And the line was, do you have paper? And he's just supposed to hand me paper. Or he's supposed to say, yeah. You have paper? Yeah. And I said, do you have paper? And he goes,
I got a legal pad.
Close enough.
Yeah.
and I just buckled. And I said, I wasn't, and it was always small. I said, pencil, because I got it. Was it Dixon Ticonderoga? Or was it Eberhard?
Eberhard. An Eberhard.
And I got 2 Eberhard still sharp. 2 Eberhard, number 2. I got everything. First, we'll take a little refreshment break, okay?
All right.
Did John Panka also have the same problem?
No, he was the mature man.
He was slightly
the
more
grown-up.
stand-up.
If you ever see that show, you'll see a lot of shots of John, because I'm in a pile of my own tears.
You worked hard. We're quenching thirst. Quenching thirst. I have a beautiful strawberry, orange, mango, peach drink. You have to shake it. You have to shake it. If you don't shake it, the peach is very intrusive. It will dominate the drink.
We'll shake it.
You have to shake it a lot.
shake
The peach, the flesh of the peach pulp is amazing. It's like Hitler. It does what it wants.
But with Mel Brooks, he would absolutely take what we've designed for him and then go with it and improvise.
Phil comes back and wants the child named after him and persuades you to name the child Deuteronomy.
Name the boy Phil.
Wait. One more thing. My real name is not Phil. My real name is Deuteronomy.
So much of the dialogue that he said didn't sound to me like anybody wrote it. No disrespect to the writers, but that was vintage Mel when he goes, okay, firm embrace.
Firm embrace.
Firm embrace.
But
The
the writers
choice
were
of
also
words.
raised on vintage Mel Brooks, so I think it was both.
So they really,
I think it was both. He would get a blueprint that was solidly in his world, probably more than any other show I can imagine him doing, and then he would come in and bring his thing to it. And when you study improv, you learn there's a game called give and take, where you're just basically, you learn to never jump in with a funny idea. You're always kind of responding to the other person. And if I ever used that skill, both of us did, it was just to be there to try to kick the puck back onto the ice if it happened to go off. But basically, he was doing his own thing.
He was called Uncle Phil because in the 2,000-year-old man, he said, did you have a god? He said, no, we had a fellow Phil. And so we knew that he was comfortable with the word Phil. And I think to a degree that would have frightened him if he actually knew how much we knew of his stuff.
He memorized those albums.
Yeah, which he probably did once, and he would change it the next day if he did it again. But we grew up on it, so we knew every word.
Everybody's doing it, doing it, doing it. Everybody's doing it, doing it, doing it.
Now, was that notion of doing Everybody's Doing It,
Yeah.
which is the turkey trot number, was that his idea, or was it?
I think that was sort
was
of,
Mel.
wasn't a demand, but it was sort of, how can we get a song in? But in that story, it made perfect sense that we worried about his health, and he's not only healthy and up, he's dancing and singing
He'd
a
also
song.
done the show once before, so it was a good instinct of his to not come back and redo what he did. If he's going to come back, let's, it's like his movies. Suddenly now they're singing a song about the Inquisition.
And that was where I was watching your face on the show, and it looked to me like for a moment there you lost it. And this is a show where nobody ever breaks
Well,
up.
because, and that episode, I think, is one of our outstanding episodes, and I think quintessential in the sense that it had an absolute important small storyline. It was a couple trying to decide if they want to know the sex of their baby. It's a very real conversation. And on top of that is this huge vaudeville act of Mel Brooks singing with 3 nurses and getting folded into bed. So whenever we could get both of those, we felt we hit a home run. So those were thrilling days.